Welcome back to Cover Your Assets. We've got Todd Rooker, unbiased advice. We've got Craig Nestor, foreclosure defense, and also Derek Walgrave, investment property short sale specialist. This is financial tactics for the 21st century. And if you go to coveryourassets21.com, you can get some more information about the team, your free copy of the Financial Crisis Bible. But Craig Nestor, really, what is it that we do around here day in and day out when we're not on the radio?
That's a great question, because we do have day jobs and we all work seamlessly together, yet have our own specialty. And to give you an example, our young show here has gotten some traction and it's being well received by our people that are out there that can hear us. And we have some postcards going out to them. And actually someone called in off the postcard and said, hey, Cover Your Assets. Here's what I've got going on. And this, just happened, today. Our man is named Jag. We'll call him Jag. And Jag got promoted from Minneapolis to Atlanta. And boss says, Jag, the job is here. You have to come and get it. So he wants to sell and he's upside down. So here's Jag's scenario. He has a first mortgage of $280,000. He has a second mortgage of $200,000. So he owes $480,000. A market value would say it's worth $380,000. So Jag's $100,000 upside down. He has credit card balances of $35,000. 3 401k loans. He makes over $100,000 a year and he has 7 kids. So he makes money. He has enough to keep it going. He has a $100,000 a year deficiency. He's trying to move to get to Atlanta. A lot of moving parts that just one person may not be able to dissect without the help of Todd Rooker. So.
And Todd's sitting here going, I got to figure this out quickly.
You could have told me before.
So,
the brow is furrowed.
Well, this is kind of like sitting in front of clients when they give me their discovery documents, and I look through all of them. So the first things that come to mind immediately is the large second mortgage of $200,000 with a deficient debt of $100,000, which even when somebody says their home is worth a certain number, I take that with a grain of salt. It's like trying to describe your children to me. I don't necessarily know that $100,000 deficiency is accurate. And as a matter of fact, I would generally expect that it would be higher than what that number is. This guy's on the hook for this money. He's got 7 kids. He's got credit card debt that exacerbates the situation in addition to the $100,000 mortgage deficiency. So the idea is, how do we get him out from underneath this and get him into a position where he can move on with his life more specifically? Obviously, we're not going to be trying to save the home because he's got to move on where the job is and where the income is. So we're going to have to put him in a position where he can negotiate with the bank. We're going to probably wind up looking at doing a short sale to minimize the damage if that's what he'd like to be able to do. We will probably look at trying to prepare him to negotiate. He's already got 3 401k loans. That tells me immediately that chances are he's not going to be able to get another loan. And the fact that he got 3 is shocking to me, because generally you can't get more than 1 unless you can demonstrate hardship until the first one is paid down. How much he has left in his retirement account to negotiate on that $100,000 deficiency is crucial. And even more importantly, what's the cost of living going to be in Atlanta, and how are we going to position him to be solvent when he moves and make sure that he doesn't wind up in another upside down position. So I would look through all of his stuff, and I would really try to focus on what's coming next and not so much about where we are now. He's going to move on, and that $100,000 may very well pursue him in the future. But the bottom line is, we've got to be in a position where he's strong enough to rebuild his financial life, and that really takes precedence over everything else.
Well, and it's that second mortgage. That's the bogey. I mean, that's the one that's going to put a wrench into this. We're going to have to address that. They're going to get half their money, and that's not going to be enough once they see his income. They're not going to feel real bad about the 7 kids. They're not going to feel real bad about the credit card debt. They want their money.
Having said that, who is the second mortgage, Craig? Did he tell you that?
Yep.
Okay. So Wells is going to be tough. They're tough to deal with in terms of percentage of settlements and what it takes to do that. And I'm not going to beat up on a bank, but there are certain banks that are problematic and that are tougher to settle with. Some, you may say 10 cents on the dollar to negotiate that $100,000 debt, meaning $10,000 could give you a full and final satisfaction of that debt. Others will be 50% and higher. And the stronger you look on paper, the tougher it's going to be to negotiate. He's got a good income, but if he has 7 children, did you say, Craig?
7, count them.
7
Wow.
children. Well, here's the thing: on $100,000 $20,000 worth of income, he may actually meet the means test to qualify for a Chapter 7 dischargeable bankruptcy. And while he may not want to actually file a Chapter 7, it'll put him in a strong position to negotiate, because if he can, he's in the strongest position possible to use that as leverage to negotiate a deep settlement.
And one of the things you asked me, Kelly, is what happens when someone comes and sees me is, well, we discuss bankruptcy and they don't want to.
Right.
I mean, they don't want to talk about it. And I tell you what, Jag looked me right in the eye and said, I'm going to honor my debt. And I said, I got that, but you need to honor that job and those 7 kids. And Mama Bear back home who's trying to figure out if she should pack some boxes or not. So let's look at that. Let's get that out there. So at least we can put a kink or a crimp in the thinking a little bit, open this up a little bit, and let's look at all the things that are possible to navigate us.
Everybody says they're not going to file bankruptcy. They always say that when they come to see me. I mean, but at the end of the day, and look, 8 out of 10 of the people that I work with are not going to file bankruptcy. Having said that, if you don't position a person to be able to do it, how is the bank ever going? How are you ever going to get the bank to negotiate on deep settlements unless you really can? And here's the other thing: if you look at the amount of settlement, maybe he says the maximum I can come up with is another $25,000, and after that I'm tapped, and I don't have the money to enter into a payment plan long term because I got 7 kids. So look, if we put forth an offer at $25,000, make him look as bad as we can on paper financially to put him in a strong position to negotiate. And the bank says, "Hey Todd, screw you and your client. We're not going to take $25,000." Well, how long will he lay awake in bed at night thinking about, well, tell me more about that bankruptcy option? If I know that's coming, why in the world didn't I position him from day one to be able to do it if God forbid he needs to do it? So I always do that.
And one thing I think that a lot of people, we hear the term short sales becoming, part of the normal parlance these days, but a lot of people think that they can just walk up and order one. There needs to be some sort of a hardship, and he falls in there, doesn't he?
Absolutely. The fact that he's got a job in Atlanta lined up, I mean, that alone is a hardship. So I mean, there are several ways to position yourself through a hardship letter, and that's the key.
Well, in point of fact, he doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a job unless he moves
to Atlanta.
Right. Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So that's how you would portray that.
Right. But the point is strategy with this.
Right.
And if you're not going into it right out of the bat with your strategy, I mean, that's when the failure is going to happen as far as navigating through this. And that, I think, is the point going to Todd, is that's the strategy that's going to be laid out. And once you have that in place, you go into the situation with the greatest chance of making it happen.
And I hear people say, well, the hardship letter is meaningless. Hardship letter is the most important component within a short sale. If that hardship letter doesn't demonstrate a legitimate reason for default, then you've got nothing to begin with. Having said that, your financials, meaning your bank statements, your check stubs, everything better illustrate what you've got in your hardship letter, because you can make people cry all day you want on a hardship letter, but if it doesn't pan out in the rest of the ancillary information that supports it, then it's meaningless.
It's over right then. You can't change that. If you say in your hardship letter, I've exhausted all of my resources to try to make my payments on time, and you have not.
Yeah.
Or if you say,
and then you show them the bank statements and there's $20,000 sitting in the savings account. Give me a break.
It's over.
It's over.
It is.
Yeah.
And there's no going back. I mean, that's the thing with, again, when we meet with clients and the short sales, and I mean, it's so imperative that they understand their options and the strategy is put into place prior to doing this.
And they don't do that.
No, they don't. Well, and unfortunately, there are a lot of real estate agents out there that are very inviting. Oh, yeah, we'll take care of it.
And they're great agents.
Yeah.
But see, remember, this is not their issue.
No.
And the idea that you would position your finances, get that money the heck out of the bank, so when they ask you for the last 2 months' bank statements, it won't show that the money was ever in there nor has been evacuated. That puts you in a strong position to negotiate. But from a real estate agent's perspective, that's not their problem. They got paid to sell the house, and they did that. Mm-hmm. See? So a strategy long-term is not something that most look at.
And that's the thing we talk about all the time. Let's start from the beginning and don't do anything until you know the next 5 steps. Don't just start stepping, lay them out. So Craig, you, in this case, Jag, we're thrilled that you called us off of the Cover Your Assets mailer. It's going to be real interesting to see how he moves through what the team can do.
Well, you can see it here. So we have someone that comes in through a point of contact. We do a general conversation. We uncover really what's next for him. How does he win in this? What is he trying to accomplish? What are the ways that's possible for that? And when you start drilling down, you need some expertise, and you have to move that to a Derek Walgrave who can speak to him about short sales and understands they don't just give that away. And you can't make
AM
up
1280 The
hardship letter.
Patriot.